Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our discussions of 1970s disaster movies. And I'd like to focus our attention today, if I may, my dear friends, on one of the most iconic and spectacular films from this particular genre and this particular decade. I'm speaking about a film from 1972. The director is Ronald Neame. It is based upon the book by Paul Gallico. Screenplay by Sterling Sullivan and Wendell Mays. Music by John Williams. Produced by Irwin Allen. And it has a remarkable cast, included in which are, for example, Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, Red Buttons, Carol Lynley, Roddy McDowall, Stella Stevens, Shelley Winters, Jack Albertson, Pamela Sue Martin, Leslie Nielsen. I am speaking, of course, about the iconic work, which is called The Poseidon Adventure. The Poseidon Adventure is essentially a film, or we can describe its plot to be essentially about the SS Poseidon, a luxury passenger ocean liner which is en route in its transatlantic voyage on New Year's Eve. And we follow a particular group of passengers and the drama or the melodrama or the soap opera aspects that are involved in their particular story arcs. The Rogos, the Rosens, Mr. Martin, Reverend Scott, Susan and Robin, Akers, Nani, etc. And also we follow the circumstances that involve the crew, which is led by the captain, played by Leslie Nielsen, and others. And it is New Year's, and so there's a New Year's party festivity planned for the passengers this very evening. Unfortunately, of course, there is also, quite suddenly, a very devastating undersea earthquake, which causes or brings about this huge, devastating tidal wave or tsunami that is on a collision course for the SS Poseidon. And when the SS Poseidon collides with this huge force, what happens? Causes the entire thing to capsize, essentially turn upside down. So everything that's on top is now on the bottom. Everything is topsy-turvy, with the passengers and crew stuck inside SS Poseidon. And so in this extraordinary, devastating, dangerous situation that these characters are now facing, we see a group of characters that emerge, led by Reverend Scott, played by Gene Hackman, of course. And he tries, along with this group of people who are trying to survive, he and they indeed, are trying to find their way out, hopefully before it is too late. This is the extraordinary disaster movie epic, The Poseidon Adventure. I have said it before, and I'll say it again. This is one of my favorites, absolute favorites from this particular genre. I saw this film for the first time when I was a kid growing up, and it was playing on TV one evening, and I was hooked. From there on in, my life changed, because it was one of these films that I was engaged in from the get-go. And I was so taken with it that I tracked down the book and I read the book again when I was young. I didn't quite understand some aspects of the book, and I noticed that there were some differences, but all in all, it made me just love the film even more. And I've seen this film so many times, countless times, and every single time, my friends, I am thoroughly, thoroughly enthralled and thrilled and entertained. There is something quite extraordinary and so engaging about this particular setup, this ocean liner that is capsized and upside down. And so all these sets, all the rooms and the corridors are upside down, which is a mind-boggling type of concept. And when I was a kid watching this for the first time, it was unbelievable what I was witness to as a viewer of this on TV when it was being broadcast. So I was enthralled, and I continue to be enthralled because there is a sense of creativity of the use of the space, as well as the idea of the expression of the real dangerous and the perilous in decors and settings that are upside down, yes, but otherwise they are quite familiar. And so they are familiar details set forth in this unfamiliar and extraordinary and adventurous way, the Poseidon Adventure. And so in this way, or along this path, or along these paths that we see the broken meadow, we see the dirty, broken corridors, we see the darkened hallways, we see the flooded spaces, we see the danger of the flooded water that is slowly but inexorably pursuing our group of people who are trying to escape. And so time is limited. There is panic in the air, of course, and there is no guarantee that they will make it out. And so it is up to the sort of intrepid spirit, if you will, of the characters that we meet. And it is a very interesting group of characters, of course, in these, as I say, extraordinary and unbelievable situations. This too also has, as I was indicating earlier, the idea of the character arc or development. We have such a compelling group of characters. We have the Susan and Robin characters, and we have the Rosens, Manny and Belle, Jack Albertson, and Shelley Winters, and we have the Rogos, of course, Ernest Borgnine, and Stella Stevens, and Nani, and Mr. Martin, Red Buttons, and Carol Lindley, and Acres, of course, Roddy McDowall, and then the great character, Reverend Scott, who played with such fire and ferocity and energy by Gene Hackman. It is a ferocious, larger-than-life performance, and it is so fitting because it is his will, his strength of will that essentially compels these people to move on forward, even though the circumstances might seem quite dangerous, and the chances are very, very slim indeed. He still wants to have these people to try to never give up, even when the circumstances are at their most grim. What an inspirational, fiery character he is, and his relationship and his interactions and his collisions, if you will, with the various characters to a certain extent, but in particular with the Ernest Borgnine character, Rogo. That is one of the great point-counterpoint character dynamics in any disaster film, in my opinion. I love how there's a certain way that the dynamic is fleshed out such that we're not quite sure if Reverend Scott is correct all the way. I mean, he is very inspirational, of course, but is he right? We're not sure, but what other choice do we have? And indeed, I really like that sense of maybe not being quite sure, but still moving on, because this is the type of film this is. This is a disaster film, and we follow a certain set of characters through a particular set of circumstances all the way to the conclusion that this film brings to us. And there is There are high points, there are sad points, there are some real shocking moments as well. And as I indicated too, there are the great moments of the drama or melodrama or soap opera aspects. One of the great soap opera aspects of this film, so wonderfully rendered and entertaining, for example, is the Red Buttons character, Carol Lynley character, Nani and Mr. Martin. And we see also another aspect of the character development, or character arcs, in terms of the relationship between the married couples, the Rosens and the Rogos. And so we have these relationship dynamics that are already developed. And also there is this interesting interplay between the children, Susan and Robin, and also how they fit into the character group, and in particular with Reverend Scott. And so it's a great group of characters, and each performer brings his or her own particular spin or take. For example, Belle Rosen, played by Shelley Winters, a really marvelous performance, very memorable and quite moving, and also the way that she has this lovely chemistry with the Jack Albertson character. Manny is also very moving and touching as well, and the forcefulness, if you will, of the situations, combined with the soap opera drama aspect, and the clever, genius way that the set pieces are staged. Each scene is sort of like a level, and so the characters have to go from one level to another level to another level, or it's like characters going through a video game, and they have to pass a certain level and then clear it, only to reach another level, and they have to undergo and try to overcome certain obstacles or challenges, and once that's cleared, they have yet another course or another level that they have to overcome. And that type of pattern is really great because it helps us, the viewer, to be able to follow along and give space and geographic sense to this otherwise nonsensical environment, because it is indeed the interior of an ocean liner that is now capsized and upside down. So I love the way that this film presents information, and it gives us a easy to follow type of guide, which also then makes it accessible while still giving us these really extraordinarily set environments and set pieces. So there is the idea of us being able to access the world, and then us being able to be enthralled by the danger and thrill element of the particular proceedings. And indeed, this is very enthralling, very suspenseful, and very moving in parts. And the characters too, it is the characters that are so earnestly drawn out and portrayed. And I love too how there are moments of tension, a lot of moments of tension too, as well as moments of trying to work together. And it strikes such a great balance between these two sensibilities of character dynamic. In other words, there's just enough tension brought about to give the film that extra added step, if you will. And yet at the same time, it still remains grounded. It never loses focus of the quest or the adventure aspect of this, because that makes it still very accessible and, as I say, very easy to follow. So, in other words, this is a really well-presented work that is dealing with a lot of different moving parts and a lot of the spectacle, but it still maintains a sense of earnestness and groundedness, and also at the same time heightened spectacle and entertainment and suspense and drama and action, with a lot of thrills and chills and shocks and surprises too. And so, again, will they succeed? Will they survive this particular terrible and quite devastating ordeal? I mean, that is the source of the dramatic tension here, my friends, and it is done so spectacularly. And it is, of course, this and for other reasons, that The Poseidon Adventure remains one of the most iconic films of this particular era and this particular decade, and it has a great score, a driving a driving sort of score that captures a sense of adventure and uncertainty by the great John Williams. One of my favorite scores. Ever since I heard it, it's like I've never stopped humming the tune. You know what I mean? It's always been there in my heart and in my mind. It's one of those scores that is forever with you. And it's the same thing with this film. Again, I can't emphasize enough how much of a thrill I got when I first saw this film as a kid. And that has not changed. It remains so thrilling and so moving and so entertaining every single time I watch it. And so that is the primary reason why I consider this film, The Poseidon Adventure, to be one of my absolute favorites. One of my absolute favorites of this particular genre, 1970s disaster movies. And it remains, as I say, a film that surprises and it shocks, and still it leaves me wanting so much. And so many times I find myself finishing the film and then starting over and watching it again, because I just cannot get enough. It is that exciting. It is that wonderful. This is the film, The Poseidon Adventure. And with that, my friends, let me say that we are now at day 30, and tomorrow I plan to upload a video which will be day 31. And so today and tomorrow will be the final days of this run of videos where I've been discussing a little bit of my thoughts and comments about these great examples, these great films from the genre of disaster movies of the 1970s. And so all of them in their own way have been so fun to talk about, and I have enjoyed each of them in their own ways. And in that context, I must say that maybe in my heart of hearts, I was thinking I wanted to save my absolute favorites for the last days. I really love the films that we have been talking about before, but there's something special about this film, The Poseidon Adventure, and the film that I plan to talk about tomorrow on day 31. And so for me, I was saving my absolute favorites for these last days. The Poseidon Adventure is a glorious example of 1970s disaster movies. The Poseidon Adventure. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.